All right, we are back on Morning Line. It's our final segment this morning with Allison Fields, veterinarian. If you have a question or comment about your pet, give us a call, 737-7587. It's funny, Rick was talking about this trend during the break of fresh foods for your pets.
Let's have a little food discussion.
Okay, let's talk food.
You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. For years, veterinarians have been saying that grain-free food is a bunch of hooey, but nobody wants to listen to their local veterinarian. They just want to believe the box on the wall, which you're watching right now. So this might be a little ironic. But we've been saying that dogs really aren't allergic to grains and that they would eat grains in the wild, and people say no, they wouldn't eat grains. And I ask you, if you're a wolf and you kill a deer, what's the first part you eat? Eat the innards. The innards. What's in the innards? Grain. You eat grain. So dogs have eaten grain for years. Dogs also need meat and blah, blah, blah. So recently, within the past, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so, studies have come out proving, lo and behold, that your veterinarians were correct. Grain-free dog food has been implicated in causing heart disease in dogs, dilated cardiomyopathy to be exact. And part of the reason is that what they are replacing the grains with, different legumes and other things, are blocking the absorption of taurine. Taurine is necessary for heart function. So while they add extra taurine, and it says with added taurine, that's great. But if you can't absorb it, you can't use it. If you can't use it, your heart goes flabby and doesn't work. So the grain-free food trend, which started when people started becoming gluten-free, you know, if you look at the numbers in people, there's a very small minority of people who actually have celiac disease. But there's a lot of other people who are gluten-free, not for a true medical allergy, but because they might feel better while they're not on gluten. That got translated through the marketing companies into animals. So grain is not bad for your pets, so don't be afraid to use it. You can get online and you can find these studies. You can see what groups what different foods and companies are the ones that they're recommending you to stick with. Most of the ones that are being the grain-free, most of them are more boutique foods. They don't have a veterinary nutritionist on board who's figuring out all of these different diets. You need a food that has been approved and formulated by a veterinary nutritionist and has been tested, all of this stuff. So pay attention. Don't just believe the box on the wall. Now, let's talk about the fresh foods. Yeah. So the AVMA, which is the American Veterinary Medical Association, does not recommend raw feeding in dogs, mainly for one specific reason, and that is diseases that you and your dog can get from raw meat. Now, everybody out there that feeds raw meat is going to get all mad and all pissy and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. But here's the deal. If you live on a farm and you actually are butchering your meat and it's fresh, absolutely, that's a great raw diet for your pet. Not going to argue with that. If I lived on a farm and had some cattle and some chickens, I'd probably feed my dog raw too. But when you go to the grocery store and you buy your chicken or your meat, that has not come directly from the back of the grocery store where it was living. It has come from Nebraska, where it got slaughtered, went through the slaughterhouse, went into a plant where it went up and down the conveyor belts, got packaged, people touched it, people sneezed, all kinds of things happened. And it's contaminated, people. This is why we cook our meat. So if you're going to feed your animal raw, you need to understand that you are at risk yourself and your dog for salmonella, E. coli infections. Not because, and people really get upset about this, it's not that we're saying that raw meat is bad for your dog. It's where we're getting this meat and how it's being handled. And you can get a child that's playing with the dog and the dog kisses the child right after they ate. You can infect the child with salmonella or E. coli just from it getting a kiss from the dog, which normally we don't think anything about as veterinarians because dogs typically don't give us much, but they can give us that. So it's a lovely side item of E. coli and salmonella that we can get in these fresh foods. So feed at your discretion. I would strongly recommend talking to your veterinarian about what you should be feeding your dog, as opposed to talking to the people in the pet food stores who are there to sell you stuff and who are there because they're getting bonuses the more they sell of that. Veterinarians don't get anything from pet food companies. Zero. It actually costs us money to stock food, to sell you food, which is why we don't really like to stock food. And so we are out there to look out for the best for your pet. That's it. We don't get anything from a company if we sell more of their food than another, and most veterinarians only sell prescription foods that are only needed for specific disease processes. So if we're telling you, hey, go to the store and buy Purina or whatever brand they tell you, there's no Purina police that's coming around saying, good job, thanks for recommending that, here's something. We don't get anything, but yet your pet store people do. They get bonuses. You know, if we sell this many bags of Super Duper I'm raw food diet, they get a bonus, they get extra money. So yeah, you don't want to be the pet food person that starts talking to me in the aisle when I'm buying dog food, because it never goes well.
Right.
No, my husband won't go to the pet stores with me anymore because I go in quiet. I just want to get my stuff and I just want to leave. And they're like, oh, you shouldn't be feeding that food. Don't you know that that food's not good? You should be feeding this food. And I'm like, really? Where did you go to vet school? Yeah. And they look at me, I'm like, what nutrition classes have you taken?
I love it.
Let's talk about this.
Oh, man.
And then I start.
And then you can't, I know you can't resist.
No!
Hey, what is the advantage, and you made the point, if you had it really, like if you had a farm and you had to, is there some advantage to having the raw meat anyway over the cooked or the grain?
At this point in time,
is there really?
No, I don't think there's any
advantage. It wouldn't hurt them, but
it's
not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. The big food companies that have been around for years and years that have nutritionists on board, they have, you know, well, I think it's Purina in St. Louis has an amazing feeding facility where people have full-time jobs with great pay and benefits to do nothing but play with dogs. And these dogs are, you know, they have the puppies, they have different age groups, and they feed them foods and they make sure they're good for them, and they get the best health care because they're trying to figure it out, and then they get adopted to fabulous homes. So these places have put the money and the time and the research in to make sure, and they've been doing it for, what, Purina's been around for probably 100 years, started with horses and cows. They've been doing it for a long time, and they really care. They're not some fly-by-night, let's start a pet food company and make it look really attractive and take all the stuff out that are trigger words right now. Because there's no research behind that, and there's not veterinary nutritionists. They haven't, you know, done any feeding trials. So just be careful. Educate yourself as opposed to listening to what the people in the pet stores say. Talk to your veterinarian. They will be very helpful in talking to you about what is best for your dog. And yes, there are some dogs that have grain allergies. Just like in people, you talk to the veterinary dermatologist, it comes back, it's like 3 to 5% of dogs. It's a small amount. It actually might be high. It might be more like 2 to 3%. So yes, there are some dogs that have grain allergies, and if that's the case, there are appropriate foods that don't have grains that also don't block the absorption of taurine.
It's interesting how humans will pass on their fads to their pets. That's what it is. It's a fad.
And so unfortunately, it's killing dogs.
Yeah. What makes you? Well, some of these fads kill humans.
Correct.
I'm just like, but humans will pass that on to their pet and think. That's fascinating, though. I think that's great that you just shared that, because some of that I didn't know, and it's never occurred to me to come off grains for our dogs. We do what you say. We get the Purina or some of these brands. We stay on the same one. I don't mess around anymore with other foods. The dogs like it. They've been healthy as can be. And it's the way it's always been. And our animals live to be a long age, and they're healthy, you know? I guess everyone's always looking for something new or better. And the way these things are marketed, you're absolutely right.
Well,
Be it online or whatever, it just gets you like, wow, that looks cool, and it's super healthy.
There's a company out there that wants you to take their challenge. Well, if anybody takes their challenge, you feel like an idiot because you've just failed the challenge. And it really doesn't matter. It's set up that way. But we, as pet owners, don't see that. And we're like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I have failed my pet. I have got to get off of what, because everybody fails that challenge unless you're feeding their food. Don't know if you figured that out yet.
Rick was just saying about people, some guy who wants to have his tough dog or whatever, feed the wolf inside. Here you go. There's the promo. Feed the wolf inside and get them the pure meat. So then you have a tougher dog. Okay, I think we know. Allison clearly had strong opinions on that.
Just a little.
Very nice. Thank you for that. Just stick with it. And again, as she's taught me, aside from no table scraps, make sure that you stick with that one food for your animal. Don't mess around because they end up having an allergic reaction. It's harder to pin down what it is, right?
Yep.
Allison, as always, a pleasure. You're the best, and I like it when you get on your high horse, all right? We'll see you again in a month, all right?
Yeah. All
right, we'll take a break. I'll have programming note about tomorrow right after this.